Hello everyone, how's it going? Yeah, so we did it. We got the keyboard done. This crazy, super complex part wraps all the way around. Apologies again for that last part sort of being a bit more less traditional than normal, having to sort of re-record some parts and do a bit more editing and speeding some things up. Just wanted to make sure I got the method across clearly. But with that out of the way, everything we have left to do is on this little sheet here. Some of these things take like 2 seconds, like these cylinders here. So we are down to just the details. We can probably knock out a bunch of these in every single part. First off, we sort of have these side. See how this is like a larger version of these connector pieces? I believe there's some sort of like something to sort of hold it in there. So we're going to be figuring out how we can add that in. I have a few ideas already. Then we have sort of adding a slit to this middle piece. And then if we make it there, we can sort of revisit these guys, add a screw in here, see if we can up the quality of this a little bit more, screws in the bottom. Do I think we'll get through all of that? Probably not. Let's just sort of do this one at a time though, because we probably will get through these pretty quickly. So let's start with this. I even have the 3D model up. So it's kind of hard to see exactly what's going on, but it kind of seems like, yeah, some kind of guard piece that locks into the metal, and then we can't really see exactly where it's plugging into, but I imagine it's sort of fused in with this. It's probably plugged into the side here, and then it goes up and maybe attaches to the back here, and then we have one on both sides. It shouldn't be too hard to make now that we have this done. What I'm going to do is just grab this, smart duplicate, center pivot, freeze transform, delete history, all that. We can just sort of shave off the parts that we don't need. So up here I can delete that, and then all of this stuff, we don't really need that either. If you're wondering how I'm going between wireframe and normal view without going up here, I just have the number keys on my mouse. So 4 is wireframe, 5 is back to normal. But yeah, looking at this reference, it just sort of has this sort of like rib on the outside, and it's a little bit thicker. That's pretty much the only difference I see, so I'm just going to grab these and pull them forward. Grab this vertex and pull it up, just sort of making everything a little bit larger. Maybe not to that extent, actually. Pull it forward a little. Pull this up a little. Same here. And this is pretty nice. I can just have it sort of plug into the side there. Can go ahead and fill this hole. Shift right click, fill hole. Get that out of the way a little bit. And then up here, we don't really have any clear views, even looking at the 3D model of how exactly this is ending. But if I fill the hole here, we can sort of continue it further along, extrude out. And then maybe how would it look if we extruded this here? Something like this could work. Might have to flatten this out. And flatten this out. I just want more smooth connections. Make sure the top and the bottom are straight by scaling it down. And then from here, just sort of add a cut, pull this up, and we can just sort of bolt it in place. I'm going to go ahead and bevel this just to have some rounded corners. Looks nice when you're surrounding a rounded shape like a bolt. And then we have to think about how we're going to anchor it down on this side. We can probably just do a very similar thing. I'm just going to grab these verts, see if we can put the pivot here and snap it. Yeah, we still have plenty of space between everything, and it's gonna mean we don't have to add a lot of extra geo. I'm just trying to think about how far we should snap it, if we should go all the way down, if we could bring it closer. I kind of like the idea of bringing it closer, just as like a detail that you can sort of see if you're poking the camera through. I do want to try and see what it's like if I snap the verts down. Just want it to be a bit more straight. And have it be a bit more identifiable, that it's like a different piece. From here we can go ahead and round these corners. Simply by beveling. Okay. It also seems to be more triangular here, as if it's like part of this. So what I'm going to do is add a cut. Actually go into a different view. And add a cut straight down. Just sort of have it melt into that beam there. So what I can do with that cut in place is just sort of extrude this down, scale it, and snap it to here. So it gives us that sort of triangle. If we go ahead and merge those shapes, we can take it a bit further. By raising it up. I'm going to put the pivot on that bottom vert and actually snap it so it's flush with the bottom of this bar. And we can actually probably combine them. Say if I extrude this further back, just trying to get this sort of unified shape look. So if I pull that further back, I can then bring this up. Let's add a cut in there, snap it to be level. And you guys know the drill, we got to delete the faces. I can snap that up, merge, and now we just have to worry about combining all of this together. I might even want to pull it forward a little bit. do a wee bit of cleanup here. Might even, no, I guess I can't get rid of that. Something like so. We're gonna have to add in, yeah, this sort of rib shape, which should be easy. I'm going to isolate this. Would have been easier without all these extra edges in place, but we have them now, so we sort of have to work with it. I'm trying to think of the best way to do that. I suppose we could still, I'm just going to try this, grabbing these edges and going Control E, offset, so it sort of extrudes it in. And then we could extrude that out, but not the best quality, just because of the different thicknesses all the way around. It might help to simplify this a bit. Sort of merge these in. I'm also going to change the color of this since it's technically like a different piece. Maybe go for a green, might be easier to see everything. And try that method again with the offset. Everything should be a bit more uniform. Okay. Trying to make it pretty thin, so maybe a 0.65. And then I'm just going to adjust the thickness on the outline here. Clean this up. Don't really need it to be different there. And this is just going to be something that's baked down completely. So I'm not too worried about poly count or anything like that. I'm mostly just concerned about how it's going to look inside of Zbrush. So if we extrude this out, or rather do a proper extrude with a Control E so it's coming out in an even length in every direction. We can then do a bit of an offset, so we pinch it a little bit. And then I might even want to bring it out less, like a 0.15, and the offset of like 0.05. Just want to keep it subtle, because I know when we smooth it, it'll probably a lot, and I definitely don't want it to be too prominent, so definitely going for a bit smaller with this one. I might even make the thickness 0.1, even less, yeah. Okay. Since we are trying to make it all smooth though, and this is just going to be normal detail, I'm going to go ahead and bevel the ends. Yeah, all this information is going to be taken away in the actual final model, so I don't mind doing something like that. We have to, let's see. This actually seems a lot smaller now that I'm looking at it. Looks a little bit too small. Let's make it a bit bigger. A bit taller. This is also a piece where we don't really have any actual sight of it, so I'm gonna, think of how this would properly be. I'd imagine it would be a rounded piece or a chamfered piece like so. Kind of have to imagine how this would be since we don't really have a proper reference for it. I do want to see if we have any shots of the back where we can see something like that, but yeah, it's a bit too muddied to really get a good look of any of that stuff. The only thing to keep in mind is we have these keys here that are still going to go under, so they need the room, but we still have enough room here to sort of go around it. Just something to be aware of. And I do believe all these keys, I'm fairly certain, wrap around these bars rather than go above anyways, so it should be good. But just things to be aware of. Yeah, so we should probably go ahead and add those booleans. I feel like this might be a bit thick. Might want to pull it in a little bit. So we'll do the booleans, we'll attach it, we'll mirror it. And then we can move on to the next part. So let's clean this up while we're looking at it. Just snapping edges so that we don't have to have more edges and more geo than we need. Still going to be doing a big pass after all of this stuff once we're done with the high poly, but for now, just making our lives a little bit easier. Let's go ahead and shift right click poke face there, and that's one way we can snap a cylinder to it. We can also, what I'm going to be doing is just sort of using this tool to plop a cylinder. We're just trying to get a cylinder centered on this part of the mesh. Divisions are a little bit low, so I'm just going to grab everything and bevel it. And stick that in there. Freeze transforms, delete history on everything. We can go ahead and grab our Boolean manager, DC Bool manager. Click. Shift click our Boolean mesh and make sure it's on difference. New Boolean operation. Center pivot on that guy. We can sort of adjust this. And I'm happy with that, so I'm just going to hit delete history and base objects. Shift right click to poke face. I'm doing that just to get a pivot point in the middle. And then we can just sort of duplicate a screw that we have lying around to anchor this guy down. Give it a bit of a random rotation so it's not so uniform with everything else around it. And nice. That's another piece. Once again, we'll have to do a Boolean mesh here. I'm actually going to pull this guy a bit further back. But let's go ahead and isolate him. Can once again grab a cylinder. Get a few more subdivisions on him. And this is all being baked down, so obviously like this amount of geo would be kind of silly in an actual final model. Freeze transform, delete history, new Boolean, and delete history and base objects. Might want to make that a bit smaller. I don't like how close this is to the edges. Once we start smoothing things, it might be kind of problematic. I'll poke that so we have something to snap to. sort of work this guy in there. Nice. Let's see what we can do to attach this. I think the easiest way we can do this is first of all detaching this piece, so that we can just mirror it over later, because this is symmetrical all the way across. So yeah, I'm going to select all of that and shift right click, extract faces, which is going to make it its own mesh. Can then add a cut to the middle. I'm going to just go ahead and delete this half, and we'll mirror it over in a bit. So with that deleted, we can select these two and work on connecting them. We could do a Boolean. I want to be a bit safer and just manually cut this out. So just using the cut tool, just sort of tracing this shape along. And then closing it off. Go ahead and merge these guys. But yeah, let's just go ahead and snap these vertices. So they're totally flush with the shape. Okay, cool. We're gonna have to go ahead and delete these two faces if we want to connect everything. We're gonna have to cut the same shape out of this guy. Okay. Select those faces, delete them, and just snap. Okay, we should be able to do a mesh combine, merge vertices. Let's close some of these off. Okay, that should do it. Then by putting the pivot back in the middle, freeze transforms, delete history, mirroring by X. Just merging everything to be safe. We can then delete this guy in the middle, and we should have those guards on both sides. Sort of integrated into this piece, just like the reference shows, where it's all kind of one. Cool. I'm happy with that. It's going to be nice when we bring it into Zbrush, because we'll get some nice sort of smooth transitions. If I hit 3, not the best example, but it'll be there. So that's nice. We are going to have to combine these guys back together though. So mesh combine, merge vertices. So that's all one again. And nice. We got that done. And that's a whole other one. We have 2 of these pictures already done. The first one, of course, being the keyboard. So 1, 2, 3 is adding this little slit here. So we're still working on the same piece. This is a super easy fix. We're just going to be doing a quick Boolean cut all the way along. So we can actually go back to isolating this guy, and let's start by grabbing a cube. Just sort of position this guy very loosely. We're just going to be, doing a nice Boolean cut with him. It seems very thin. This whole piece does seem a bit thicker though. Kind of makes me want to maybe grab these verts and pull them out a little bit. And then maybe even grab this top one and squish it in. But with that done, we can poke face to sort of get a middle point and snap this cube there. Delete those edges, obviously, because we don't need them. Pull this through one end. Pull this through another. We just need to focus on how deep we want this to be. It seems like it's going pretty deep down. So let's mimic that and have it almost go all the way to the base. It's pretty good. This is going to be baked information, so I'm going to keep it pretty thin. The wider it is, the more obvious it's going to be that it's baked, so I want to keep it nice and small. I know it's going to be baked because there's no point adding geo to something like this. Like, it's all black, there's no visual information. We'll never see what's inside of the crevice, nor does it affect the silhouette of the mesh. So for those two reasons, I'm just going to be cutting and baking it down and then removing the cut later on. So let's go ahead and do our Boolean. And we could totally do this without Booleaning, if that's a word. We could have just added a cut and extruded down, but I think this is a bit quicker. So we'll click, shift click, difference, clean up, delete history and base objects, and right. Okay, it seems that this whole mesh has a hole in it somewhere, so it just cut a hole through without properly matching everything up. So I'm just going to grab these edges, extrude them all the way down so we can snap it to the other side. Yeah, so we've had this happen a few times before, where if there's a hole in the mesh when you do a Boolean, it won't actually connect the pieces. Just going to merge really quick. It won't actually connect the pieces. So there's obviously a hole in here somewhere. So it's not going to like that very much. We can go ahead and clean up the geo a little bit, snap this down. I'm thinking if I like this being attached. I don't know if it makes a lot of sense. For now, we'll keep it, but I could see myself in the future getting rid of it and just having it be a smooth transition there. It just seems odd that in a giant frame where everything's very sturdy and solid to have these sort of like flimsy pieces as part of the same page. We'll roll with it for now, but the logistics I'm questioning a little bit. So we'll keep our eye on that. We also forgot to duplicate our screws over. And then this guy as well. Okay, so that's that cut added. Once again, we're breezing through these. That's a whole other one done. We have number 4 here. Part of this is that we don't have any sort of screw here that's attaching this sort of bell piece in. I'm also going to auto smooth that. I'm wondering if this should be this wide. Maybe I should thin this out a little bit, more like that. And then smooth it. Yeah, that's a bit better. Yeah, we don't have any sort of screw connecting this, so we should go ahead and set that up. This is another really simple one, just another basic Boolean. So I'm just going to put a screw on this. Grab a cylinder, and I want that to be centered. I actually am going to have the screw based on the center of this bell, because that's where it would be bolted down to. Can go ahead and shrink this. Looking at reference, it's about yay big, so I'm going to be going off of that. It's a pretty small one. I'll exaggerate it a little bit so it's easier to see. And I'm going to puncture this one all the way through. So let's isolate these guys. Freeze transforms, delete history. Grab our bool manager. Making sure to select both of them and having our second one be the mesh we're cutting with. Clean up, delete history and base objects. Clean up these extra edges. They're not helping us very much. And then we'll just bridge everything over. Nice. Worked on the first try. So that's that. Seems like this is actually going inside of it, so we'll pull it back a little. Actually, in fact, I might take this vert and snap it to the ones around it so it's actually flat. And then we can snap the pivot there. Snap that to the front. Seems like this side isn't flush, actually. I'm going to grab these two faces and scale them so they're even. I know we were going for a tapering effect, but on the inside you won't even be able to see it. And doing this ensures that we can have this guy snap to the front of this perfectly. So that's a trade I'm willing to make. I also want to bevel this. I don't think it's as round as it should be. Interesting. It doesn't like me beveling this middle one. I'm assuming verts on verts. Yep. Okay. Whenever you have an issue with beveling, just double check that there isn't verts on top of each other. So I'm just going to merge vertices. Weird. It's still not liking it. Maybe if I isolate, just select these verts, shift right click, and then instead of merge vertices, merge vertices to center, which forces everything in the selection to be merged to the center. I'll do the same here by pressing G. It now, yep, forces it to be all merged down. Cool. Let's add in that little circular peg. Very, very easy. Done plenty of things like this. I'm going to grab this. Ring selection. We can do our good old smart duplicate faces. center pivot, yada, yada, yada. So we have a perfect cylinder, exactly like how it should be. We can go ahead and reverse the faces and then fill a hole on each side. Squish this guy down a little bit, have him poking out a bit for some depth. Just gonna auto smooth it, and then we'll let Zbrush take care of the smoothing. We're running everything through Zbrush, being very thorough with this guy, taking our time for sure. But I do want to give him a color, just so we don't forget about him. Let's give him a little red color, or a dark gray color. Nice. Okay, now should we add something on the inside? Probably. I say we take this guy, we duplicate it, and we do a Boolean through this guy. It has to be attached or pinned down in some way, so this is a pretty necessary step. Shift, clicking our two meshes, new Boolean operation, cleanup, delete history and base objects, cuts it clean through. It retains the color of the Boolean mesh though, but that's totally fine. We won't have that as actual information. Anyways, and then we'll need some sort of blocker there. I'm gonna check if I have any screws that would do a good job of that. And none of these really seem to fit the bill, so let's just model something really basic blocker. I'm just gonna sort of extrude this guy, pull him out a little bit, add an edge loop. We can just sort of like extrude this, like 0.05, 0.075. It's going to merge those faces to center, and then we might even be able to just bake this down. So I'm going to pull this in. Do something like that, but just to show that it's being like held into place by something. So if you turn off wireframe, it's just like there's something there keeping it in place. Everything has to be grounded in some kind of logic. Like, why is it there? What's its purpose? How does it, maintain its shape? How does it stay connected and not just fall to the ground? So that's that piece. I might even want this to be inset, actually. Might look more sturdy that way. Yeah, and that leaves this guy, and I think once we get this guy done, that's probably a pretty natural place to end this section. We're breezing through all of this stuff now. Like, all the difficult stuff is done. I say that, I'm sure we'll run into something else tricky, but we're definitely past the bulk of it. Looking at this guy, it's just a little bit more complex. The shape is the same here, but I'm thinking we could probably push this a little bit further. Maybe if I make this smaller, but longer. Sound Kijiji looking for a PS3. I guess the guy got back to me. Just gonna manually select all of this. Shrink it down. I still like this part sticking through. But maybe if we change the scaling to object, I guess I froze the transformations. I was hoping to sort of scale it along itself, if that makes sense. We can still plug it in. Pull this out. Seems the inside faces aren't as far out as they should be, so I'll do that. I wonder if that's poking through. Nope. Okay. I don't know what else we can really do to add more visual interest. I guess we could just select these guys, extrude them in, like so, and then just smart duplicate that guy so we have these faces, and extrude it all, making sure there's no inverted faces. And then it just adds a bit more, it's a bit more going on, right? Give it a different color so we won't forget about it. Probably yellow, we can just combine these two. But yeah, we can have multiple materials, right? Like this can be a different material than this, than this, than this. These two will be the same. Something you want to keep in mind is a good thing to try and do with shapes in general is have large shapes, medium shapes, and small shapes. With this medium shape, I guess I could probably push the, you know, the medium size of it a little bit more. So I could make it a bit more like so. But yeah, you don't want to just have just big shapes or just small shapes, right? And this typewriter has been very, very good when it comes to that kind of stuff. Because when we zoom out, we have this very big shape comprised of all these medium shapes. And then everywhere we have these little small shapes. Even when you zoom in here, it's like big shape, medium shape, small shape, everywhere, all over the whole thing. Even when you're zooming in here, big, medium, small, big, medium, small, all over the place. That's why I think this is such a fascinating design. I think I'm going to chamfer that guy down. And that'll probably do it, unless I want to pull this up, and then maybe I don't know, slice through. I'm just gonna try and make like a washer or something. Let's just bridge all of this. Of course it does a spin. So we'll bridge one, and then the rest of them. I love how it always does that every once in a while. It's never super consistent, but just grab these outside rings, pull them out a little bit. Let's just give them a different color, why not? yeah, it's just a bit more interesting. It was very flat before. Maybe something important to do is rotate this. If I center pivot on it, put that screw somewhere a bit more obvious, maybe like near the top, facing forward. Let's put the pivot of this guy in the middle, so when we rotate it, we can just sort of rotate it back into position. And that's a bit more interesting, even when you look at it from afar. Let's take off wireframe. It's just more fascinating. There's a lot more rings. We can have multiple shades of metal, or types of metal rather. But yeah, we got the green part done. We cut that. We did this. Added the cut there. Less than an hour on this recording, I'm pretty sure. Like, we could just keep going. I could be like, let's add the screws to the bottom, but let's pace ourselves. No need to go too crazy. The next part will probably get a lot done. I'm saying we can get this done in no more than 3 more parts after this. At the max. The only thing that would take long is these sort of like special key attachments at the bottom. Oh, wait, okay, maybe not. I forgot about the back. The back, we'll save the back for the end. Everything except for these bottom 3 are like super easy. Let's say we'll get everything else done except for the bottom in the next episode, and then I'll break it down from there, and we'll have a better idea as to how we're doing it. Thank you guys for watching. Really happy with the progress. Really excited to continue along with this. But yeah, thank you, and I'll catch you in the next part. See you guys.